Both are with the Ecumenical Forum of Canada. One is we call it the Windows Project, and I've left some samples back there. It's the Canadian response to the Chilean apartheid, the art of resistance, and it's the effort to mobilize some in the ecumenical community in Canada to do in the fabric artistry, what our reality is in Canada. What are the issues wounding us in Canada? And we give these to international visitors. So something on that. And the other one is the proposal of the Ecumenical Forum of Canada to move into the interfaith communities in Canada, which we hope to be doing on a 5-year thing starting in the fall. So it's Windows, which is international linkages, and it's interfaith communities.
And are these things that people here can participate?
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is an example then, if there are people here who would be interested in participating in this,
The light just died.
then you would have an opportunity to meet with Lois, say over the corner or some other place when we finish this session. All right? Remi De Roo, number 2.
I'm not sure what you're expecting of me here.
Well, I was told...
How much time have I got?
You've got about the same time that Lois has.
Oh, then I pass.
Well, we'll accept that. You can bid again the second time around, okay?
I wonder, did I insert the thought that I presented in one of the previous encounters here about how you go about transforming society. The theme this afternoon is creative alternatives. Now, I interpret creative as alternatives that will change society. Because there's all kinds of bright new ideas around, but they don't change society. Now, I personally have given up wasting my time on initiatives that are not aimed at transforming society. I mean, we can run all over the place putting Band-Aids on all kinds of problems, and there are people who have that mission, that calling. I respect them. That's fine. That's their thing. But I will no longer spend my time there. I've only got one life to live. I put my energy into changing society. And speaking out of the experience that we have acquired, we being the Roman Catholic Bishops of Canada over the past 20 years, we have developed what we call a pastoral methodology, a process whereby ordinary people can actually change society. Now, I start from the perspective of raising the question that is before us, where have we gone wrong? And I don't take that perspective. It's not for me a question of having gone wrong. We've all done wonderful things in the past. They've had limited effect. The point is we're beginning to understand more profoundly and more completely the complexity of the problem and the need for social change, not just Band-Aid application. In other words, we've spent a lot of time working from the head, thinking that because we talk about problems, we're going to solve them. And nothing is changing in the power relations in society. Someone said the other day, the more it changes, the more it's the same. And that leads to a lot of anomie and frustration, and a lot of young people, for instance, getting out of society, getting out of the political process because they're wasting their time. A lot of people no longer voting because, what's the difference? And I think now we're coming into a new period with a new consciousness. And we're no longer satisfied to just deal with issues with common sense. And I'm not against common sense. Common sense has its place. But as long as we continue to run the world by common sense, we are victimized by power relationships over which we have no control and we can't do anything about it. So we have to go into a deeper level of consciousness. And that's what's happening now, and that's why it's an exciting time to be alive, because people like yourselves are awakening to that. Okay, so very briefly, because this could take an hour, I'll try to be very brief. What are the steps whereby ordinary people can actually change society? Well, I'll give you 5, but you can multiply them and, you can make this more sophisticated if you like. But there is a definite process that we have learned out of our experience if you wish, call it the Canadian equivalent of liberation theology, but it's not imported from outside. It grew out of our experience, starting way back in 1968 when we had the first Ecumenical Poverty Conference and launched what we thought could then be called the War on Poverty. The first step is to identify with some of the victims, the marginalized people. Maybe you're one of them. To get a few people together who know from experience what it is to fail in the system. And you can find them all over the place, or in your own backyard. But you've got to identify with some of the victims. To identify means to sit down with them and listen to their stories and try to enter into their experience. Then you've got to get under the surface, and you've got to do what is sometimes called social analysis. In other words, not stop at the circumstances, the consequences, but find out what are the root causes. What is it that causes people to be marginalized? When that happens, when you get at the root of what's really happening through social analysis, you begin to discover that there are two readings of history. There's a reading of history from those who are powerful and have made it, and there's a reading of history from the underside, those who have been manipulated by history. Our history books are generally written from the point of view of the conquerors. Has anybody ever written history of the world from a point of view of those who lost the battle? And yet if you pick up your Bible, you will discover that God writes history from the point of view of those who lose the battles, not the winners. God's not on the side of the powerful. The third step is to get in there with biblical values. We sometimes call that process discernment. And that's where we have to be converted. There will be no social change without conversion. And we can only be converted when we bring a new set of values and priorities into that situation which we have read with new eyes because we've seen it through the lens of the poor, of the oppressed. We've seen the underside of history. And then we begin to realize that we have to change our attitudes, because if we're not willing to identify with the victims and try and bring about the change in society, we're part of the problem, we're part of the oppressor. And we can do that with the best intentions in the world and quite unconsciously. So the third step then is to get those new values, those biblical values, and to go into this process of discernment and conversion. Out of that will grow the fourth step, and that's what we're talking about, creative alternatives. But if you short-circuit that process, my proposal here, and I'm being deliberately blunt because we haven't got time to qualify, is that you're wasting time talking creative alternatives if you haven't done the first three steps. I gave a talk along these lines to a group of preachers from around the world gathered in Edmonton about a month ago, and when I finished talking, one of them said, "Now I understand why we failed in North Island. Because in Ireland, the church forgot the first step. And as a result, they alienated most of their own people, who are now way ahead of them into revolution, and the church is lagging behind because they never identified with the victims." Just a little bit of experience. So that's where your fourth step really comes. Your creative alternatives is the fourth step that has to arise out of the experience of the marginalized, of the oppressed, of the poor. If it doesn't rise out of their experience, it's going to be another attempt by those in power to make the minor adjustments so that their power relationships aren't really changed. The more it changes, the more it stays the same. Because the ultimate issue is who structures our society for the advantage of whom. And if all we do is spend our time with the winners making accommodations so that the losers won't rebel, that the losers will in some way be rationalized into accepting their loss, we're not changing the society. And that has been the great temptation of many churches, is to accommodate themselves to situations of persecution and become part of the problem. And then finally, you move into action, which obviously involves political action. That's where you have to work not alone, but in solidarity with other people in networks. It has to be multidisciplinary. You can't solve one problem alone in isolation. The best example is disarmament. There's all kinds of people burning themselves out on disarmament issues, and they don't realize you can't solve disarmament in abstraction from the global market economy, because the ultimate reason why there's a global arms race is because some people want to keep the economic structures of domination whereby rich, powerful nations can continue to exploit those who are less powerful. And until you change that economic situation of exploitation, you won't get anywhere with the arms, trying to stop the arms race or disarmament. That's where you come into political strategies, and you learn those political strategies out of experience. You don't come at them from the textbook, which is why I told Bob, and I hope I didn't distress him too much, that I would not direct a group here this afternoon, because I want to get out of that trap of making it appear that somehow you bring someone from outside who's the expert who tells you how to do it or what to do. No. Once you've caught that vision of identifying with the poor, of doing social analysis with them, of bringing in the biblical perspective, in other words, theologizing, and then out of that, bringing creative alternatives that come out of the experience of the poor, not out of a textbook, not from an outside guru, not from those who are powerful, but from the only people who really know what the alternatives have to be because they speak from experience. Then when you catch that, then you can really do something creative. And my last word is, the transformation of society will never come from the powerful and the rich. It can only come out of the poor, not because the powerful and the rich are not well-intentioned, but because the only model they have is a control model. And the only transformation they will allow in society is that which does not threaten their control of the power relationship. And the only people who know there's an alternative because they have suffered the consequences are the poor. And that's why the future of the church and the future of the world lies in the hands of the poor, not the powerful.
Well, I'm actually very happy that David De Roo was able to give that statement before my own, because I've spent all morning not realizing that we only had 2 minutes and trying to distill 6 years of experience into 10 minutes, leading to, as a native of Nelson and somebody who's coming back with that experience in the third world, and thinking about what can we do about it and what can I do with my life here in Nelson to continue those 6 years. And I was having great difficulty with 10 minutes, and 2 minutes is getting me nowhere. I don't have to do a lot of the background thanks to what we've just been told. I would want to make one point, further point, that when you go overseas and work in a developing country and you get some detachment on your own community and you really look at what happens here in Nelson and in Canada, you think carefully, you begin to see that our situation and that of the oppressed in the third world is not really all that different. Would this institution be an empty shell if the people of Nelson had control of the intellectual and cultural community in which they live? Would Kootenay forest products be a hulk of charred embers if we had the economic control of our community? I think not. Would West Kootenay Power and Light be sold to Kansas City if we had control of the natural resources of our community and made those decisions for our community? I think not. The essence of underdevelopment is powerlessness, and I submit to you that we are as powerless over our community as the people in the third world are over theirs, and that we have to do the same, come to grips with the same problems that they do. The only difference is that we live in a wealthy third world country, and they live in a poor third world countries. And that similarity of our circumstances and theirs is a source of optimism for me in the final analysis. Because once we recognize that we share the same problems, the same world as the people in the third world, then it's possible for us to relate to them as equals who share a similar problem, and not as people who have all the answers and we've come to give it to them as gifts, as charity. There's no development in charity. Development is a process whereby people understand the problems that they face, understand who shares the same problems with them and who doesn't and why, find the courage to stand up and speak out against it, and acquire the skills to work, change the situation. And only finally, after all of those, do the resources that we might give to the third world, do the resources to affect some of the change come into the thing. We get it all backwards. We go to the third world and say, here are the resources, and we think that we've solved the problem. All of those other steps have to go before. And we can be involved in that as long as we understand that we're going through the same process in our own community. So I had two creative alternatives to suggest here today. One which I've thought about for a long time that directly relates to the theme of the conference, but the other occurred to me as I participated in this conference, as I thought about the fact that we had Lois Wilson, one of the preeminent Canadians involved in the ecumenical movement, director of the World Council of Churches, a confidant of Archbishop Tutu, here in our community. And where are the local news media? They're not here. Would the Nelson Daily News representative stand up, please? We don't have a community voice any longer in Nelson. Conrad Black bought it from us, and he turned it into a mechanism to maximize the profits for himself and the profits for the people of the system that Bishop De Roo has just told us about, who are interested in maintaining their control and their profits and don't care about the fact that the news media are there to help the community inform itself about these things that we're talking about here. We don't have a community newspaper anymore.
What do you feel about that?
The creative alternative is to consider a community-owned newspaper. This thing is going to be reported in the Nelson Daily News because somebody here in this room is going to write the report. Well, why give it to the Daily News and make profits for Conrad Black when we could give it to our own newspaper that much better? If there were 2,000 of us prepared to put up $100 to buy a share, we could start an alternative newspaper that would cover such events and that would be interested in informing this community, not in making Conrad Black rich. That's alternative one. Alternative two is a regionally based development organization from the West Kootenays that starts with this analysis of our community and goes from there to exploring ways that we could be of assistance to community organizations in the third world that are going through similar problems but in their local context. There are many aspects to that, and it certainly starts with the first step that Bishop De Roo was mentioning. And what intrigues me about this idea of a regional-based development organization is that it entails the possibility for a genuine twinning of communities in the first and the third world, if we're going to use those terms, which would provide the basis whereby we here in the Kootenays could identify with people in the third world. They're not here in our community. We have to develop a mechanism to enable that to take place. So I'm thinking in terms of a twinning kind of relationship. We twin with Japanese cities for economic reasons. I suggest we could twin with third world communities for development reasons. Organizations that do their fundraising on the basis of supporting a particular child in a third world country, get at a particular need of people, and I think we can structure that in a way that is not as patronizing as this personal sponsorship thing is, but still addresses some of the needs that people feel to be connected in a more direct way with people in the third world. So I'm primarily interested in discussing the second one, and I'd sure like to sit down with some people someday and talk about the first one as well, and I'd be prepared to put a lot of time and effort and some of my money into getting a community voice for this community again. Thank you. Sorry, I'm Marty Horswill, native of Nelson. I've been working with CUSO overseas for 6 years as the country director for their programs in southern Sudan and more recently Papua New Guinea.
Very good. I had a little word of, I hope this will be helpful for clarification.
What I would like to raise as a creative alternative, and I shouldn't say raise, but it's point out as some already exist in this area, is the fact that we do have community-based organizations which are arising in the West Kootenays, and I think what the reason they're arising is the fact that people here are beginning to recognize existing structures do not fulfill our needs. And I would like to give examples of that as Spokane Valley Resource Project, the Spokane Valley Watershed Management Group, as well as the Electrical Consumers Association, as Marty has pointed out. These are groups that are arising outside of given structures to try and allow people to take initiative and responsibility for management of our community and our resources. And what I would like to talk about is those kinds of organizations and possibilities for linkages between organizations of various groups in the West Kootenays. And secondly, look at how that may link with development in the third world in the broad sense that Canada is offering assistance to the third world, and what kind of structures and what kind of mechanisms are being tied in with that aid. Are we actually giving them the organizations that we would personally like to see for ourselves? I think that's basically it in a nutshell.
So are you interested in starting a new organization?
No, I'm not interested in starting a new organization. I'm interested in discussing structure and linkages within existing organizations. And it could tie in very nicely with the kind of thing that Marty is discussing as well.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much, Greg. Miriam Shirley, in 10 days. Could you say a word or two, please? Yes, that'd be fine.
Don't be alarmed, I'm not going to I just brought a log for a little wrap-up information. I have 2 minutes.
Yes. With a little license.
You heard the name 10 days mentioned an awful lot. You've heard a number of people mention 10 days. I belong to the Nelson Committee, and I'd like to tell you just a little about it and urge you strongly if you want to get into it. 10 days is partly funded by CEDA, the Canadian International Development Agency, and partly funded by 5 of the mainline churches of Canada: the Anglican, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Roman Catholic, and United Churches. CEDA's amount that they fund us comes to about 50%, roughly. It's not. And the amount that the churches give is based on their membership according to the census. Why is it called 10 days? Because back in 1972, some people wanted to do something to raise the awareness of Canadians, especially Canadian church people, of the needs of the third world. And they put on a program which took 10 days. And since then, we've put on a program which takes about 10 days. That's our main push, is in those 10 days. The first committees were formed in 1973, and now there are about 190 of them. We're an educational program. We don't try to raise money, and we don't try to support any particular project. You may have seen the Guatemalan weavings in there. We are helping, just acting as the local agents for Teardrop Crafts of Castlegar, but that's not a 10 days program. Our aim, as I said, is to reach Canadian church people and the Canadian public, but first of all, the Christian community, because there are an awful lot of us who don't understand. Sometimes I've said it in my group, you hear Christians say things that make their hair stand on end. The theme for the past 3 years has been the original theme. Why are people hungry? And for this coming year, the theme will be hungry for justice. We get a lot of support. I'm not going to tell you now how. I want to say one thing. If you have a 10 days committee in your area, your town, I urge you, if that is your interest, to get involved in it. And if there isn't one, form one. The Nelson Committee was formed by 2 people who thought we should have one. And we're only, I think this will be our 3rd year, this one coming up. In the meantime, one of the people who formed the group has left, and the other one is on an extended holiday of months. But there are enough of us, and we've got enough steam up to get going. I think someone mentioned, I was thinking of what Bishop De Roo said, he's not interested in things that aren't effective. So far, we've done some things that are effective, not necessarily our group, but some of the other groups across the city, across the country. And please God, we'll do more, and I hope the Nelson community, the Nelson Committee, will make a difference. I've got the information. If you want to form a committee, I've got the information on how to go about it, who to write to, phone numbers if you need, the BC contact. If you'd like to, you're interested, come and see me and I'll give it to you. I won't take the time now to read out addresses or anything like that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Is Vicky Obedkov here? Okay, got it. Hope Bronaugh?
I have just been asked to tell you a bit about a small group which we have called Christians for Peace. I tried to write down something like this. How's that? Okay, it's either that or stand on the electric cord. We have a small group called Christians for Peace. When we first decided to form this, some people seemed to think that perhaps we were being a bit exclusive. We simply felt that we were trying to get together and observe what is happening through a common point of view. It's more of an affinity group than anything else. And we meet twice each month on the first and third Monday evenings at St. Paul's United Church. We discuss what seems appropriate to discuss. We sometimes do studies. We've studied some of Gene Sharp's books on civilian defense, civilian-based defense, meaning defense of by civilians, not by armed forces, which is a much more pertinent idea than you might think unless you look at the books. We've studied various things which help us to relate directly, not just we love everybody, but to relate directly our Christian orientation with the problems that we're reading about in the papers and talking about at our group. As a matter of fact, we often find ourselves discussing economic rights more than political rights. That just reminds me of something that came up yesterday in the session. And I had about 10 minutes to write down something that would take me 2 minutes. I couldn't do it very well. So we do meet on first and third Mondays. We would be very happy to have any of you either call me, my name's listed under South Spokane, or Sandra, whose phone number is 352-9871, I think. And would be happy to have any of you come see what we're doing, whether it seems pertinent to you or worth giving the time to. And I think that's all I think I have to say.
Connected?
That one is.
That's the kind of thing that's happening in the world, faster communication. I am very, very pleased to introduce Franz Braal. He is from the Netherlands originally, but he's very much of a nationalized Canadian. He lives on the mountainside out at Tagum, and he has a deep, profound concern for the forests and for what we're doing to the forest. And he would like to introduce a few thoughts about the ways we can make creative changes, and those who are interested in gathering in a group around him are going to be invited to do so. In doing that, I would also like to emphasize that it's going to be tough to choose as to which group you want to go to. So if nobody goes to some group, it doesn't mean there's not an interest. It just means that the focus has been at another space. Franz Braal. Where are you, Franz?
What I like to discuss is how we can take care of a totally different way of our forests as have been done so far. And I like to discuss it not from the perspective of our foresters, of our experts, but as one who lived for already 17 years in this area in the woods. The main thought that I have is that we should not rape our forests as we are doing now, but that we farm our forests, that we really take care of it, and that we leave it, if we have to give it up, in a better condition than as we found it. I have a real difficulty because I really like to participate in the rose section. First of all, I am from the Netherlands. I think you are from the Belgium, the Flemish, very close to it, and I'm very interested in it. So I have other opportunities to discuss what my recent thoughts are about our forests. That is reinforced because of a recent trip I made through Europe, Germany, Austria, and 4 Eastern European countries, East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary. And I have really watched what is happening there, and that is totally different as what we do. And so if not now, then I hope to have another opportunity to share my thoughts about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, and Connie.
I had intended not to say anything today, but when Remi De Roo and Marty suggested that maybe there were things that we could even look at in our own area, I thought I'd say something. We have a tremendous opportunity here. We have a university donated to us. I think they didn't know what they were doing. But anyway, it belongs to the city. Because the Japanese college is coming here, the running expenses of the place are taken care of. Now, totally separate from that Japanese college, we have a university. We have a tremendous need. We have about 300 to 400 people who said they want to get education here, university-level education. They can't afford to go out to other places to get it. We have the need. We have the opportunity. Are we going to do anything about it? That's the question. You know that we ran our first course this summer, a master's degree course at Gonzaga University. And now we're getting ready to run the second course in the fall. We're getting ready to run bachelor's programs. All we need is the support of the people of Nelson to make this go.
Thanks, Rod. Are there any other people who would like to share a concern, plan? We are supporting the efforts in Smithers, BC, with the Taylors, who are working against great odds, and there are a number of other projects of that kind. If there are people who are interested in discussing with me these projects, how they can be supported, not only financially, but in terms of legitimacy, so that the people who are involved in them don't run the risk of losing their lives or losing their livelihood or losing their position in the society, whatever it is, I would be happy to discuss these projects with them. So that's another project which is in our list here. Okay, let me briefly review then the areas, because some rich areas here for discussion. Unfortunately, our time is short, but at least we can make a beginning. Lois has suggested two projects, what she called the Windows Project, and one involving interfaith communities. Marty has talked about a community-based newspaper, as well as a regional-based development organization. Greg has talked about ways and means of linking existing organizations, non-governmental organizations, for further strength in the West Kootenay. Shirley has talked about the 10 Days Project and the need for additional support and understanding of that project. Hope has talked about Christians for Peace, the concept of nonviolent resistance and civilian-based defense, and ways of developing that particular approach as an alternative to the ones that we have. Franz, Braal has talked about creative changes in the development and support of forests in this country, and Russ McArthur has talked about ways and means of strengthening the universities. All of those are rich areas that could take a lot of time. As I say, we don't have a lot of time, but we have about a half an hour approximately for these groups. We now have to find a way of facilitating their coming together. One way to do it would be simply to ask those who would like to join with Lois to talk about the Windows Project or the Interfaith Connection. How many of those would like
to meet at that back table where the windows
would you like
are?
to go over there now, Lois?
Yeah.
Lois is going over to the back table. Those who are interested in joining her, please do.
Go there and do it. I have suggested that if what you're going to do is to be the kind of action that actually changes society, there are steps to follow. I've given them to you, that's it. You start acting and you learn by acting. If you're interested in all kinds of wonderful things that do not by nature transform society, my blessing to you, I admire you, go and do your thing. But I will not spend half an hour talking theory about how things are to be done. Go and do them.
Okay, so what? Yes, Hope. Okay, and try out the 5 principles, the 5 actions. Exactly right. Creative changes and the forest. Where is Franz?
Generate so many wonderful ideas. So first of all, we'd like to thank our resource people who have led the workshops and discussions. We'd like to thank Brian Whaley and Sean Dwyer for coordinating the summer school and putting together so many thousands of details. Al Walters, Bill Freeman, David Flanagan for their help with the videotaping. Eva Walters and Selkirk College Vocational School for coordinating their food. Reverend Calvin Brown from the First Presbyterian Church, Bruce, Laurie, and Colleen Durante for helping us in particular with this weekend, making it such a smart success. Deanna Kincaid, our coordinator volunteers. Big thank you. Susan Slack, who took care of all the billets for people that need to be billeted, including our resource people. Murray Wells, who coordinated our excellent children's program. Marie Rillo, who helped us with publicity for the summer school. Bonnie Sullivan, the librarian for the Nelson Municipal Library, and the Canada Council for bringing Dorothy Lifestay to us for Hiroshima Day. Marjorie Mallow for organizing the Dukebar banquet, and also thank you to Mr. John J. Semenoff, who is the honorary chairman of the USCC, who I believe is here this afternoon. Thank you very much. Verigin. I'm sorry, Mr. Verigin. I knew I would make a slip somewhere. I'm sorry, I apologize. So we would like to ask Dr. Wilson and Bishop De Roo to come forward if they're here. We have a surprise gift for you. Are you around?
Bishop De Roo asked if he was needed for this afternoon, and I didn't think he was.
Okay. Well, Dr. Wilson and Bishop De Roo, there she is, and Murray Thomson has each been awarded a lifetime membership in the Kootenay Centre for a Sustainable Future.
How long is the lifetime?
As long as you live, and then some. And last but not least, before my throat gives out, we would like especially to thank Kay and Rob Morris. Kay Morris, I know, has been giving of herself way beyond the call of duty, housing people and looking after everything. I'd like to especially thank Kay for putting together our wildflower display for Dorothy Lifestay when she came to give her public reading at the Nelson Municipal Library August 6th. It was just gorgeous, and I thank you very much, Kay. And Rob Morris, who's responsible more than anyone else in our Sunday School Committee for bringing the resource people in and making this weekend Ecumenical Forum possible. So would Bob and Kay please come forward? We have a little surprise for you.
As usual, I'm on holiday, Kay's working. We have family who are leaving very shortly. They came here for this weekend, but our son is committed to be at a Waldorf conference weekend. They're open in public. Oh man, these are bowls that have to have been made by Brian Wiley, right?
Yes, it's a special creation of Brian Wiley, who's, among other things, a very good artist and potter. So we thank Brian also.
Where is Brian? Brian's in the purple shirt down in the back. It really should be a pink shirt to suit his face, but thanks, Brian, very, very much.
Thank you.
I think we should thank Sandra for all she's done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. I'd like to add a special thank you to John Verigin on behalf of all of us for the wonderful hospitality which they showed to us, and ask John if he would like to say a word.
On behalf of the people of the diocese and the Ecumenical community, which we know as the Ecumenical spiritual community of Christ, I bid you greetings and our appreciation for allowing us to be a part of this development. The field of human relations is necessary for us in all these other then hopefully to love each other. We're all interested in the same goal, and that is world peace. Peace amongst ourselves and spread out throughout the world. We pray to God that this will be achievable in our generation, for the future generations. May God bless us all in our endeavors. Thank you.
One announcement, the audio tapes are now available and can be obtained over there after this session, if you've signed up and paid for it. Okay, we're into the final session for this afternoon. This is the last meeting of the groups, the regular groups which we've had, and we're asking that you take the final hour. We don't need to come back again in a plenary, because what we're suggesting is that in your group you think about what contribution you could make as a group or individuals in the group to the celebration of hope and looking ahead to the future, which we'll be having this evening. This will be an evening session starting at 7, and we'll work best if we have maximum participation from everybody. So the group provides an opportunity to think about ideas and ways and means of contributing and participating in this evening's celebration. We will have some music. Bob, you might want to say a word about that, or would you like to leave that until this evening? It'll happen this evening. And so we have about an hour for you to take part and to work on ways and means of making this an important event for us on this weekend. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
How formal would you expect the celebration to be tonight? For instance, would it be appropriate in our group to do a skit, or would that be part of the intro?
I think it would be quite appropriate.
The feeling for tonight, and this has come about, it was unplanned this way, but it has come about because of the participation of the group. We were going to have speakers.
Always the old men sign the treaty. Always the... Oh, I'm sorry. Always the old men sign the treaty. Always the old men pass the laws. They let the contracts, they make the speeches, they talk of a lofty and noble cause. Always the old men give the medals. Always the young men give their lives. and flags fly over the cemetery, and business thrives. Pride is the enemy. Pride is the enemy of love. Its walls are heartbreak high. And what will people think of me is the rule it governs by. Pride is the enemy of love. Its bonds are cables strong. Its shackled subjects never dare admit to being wrong. Uncounted innocents must die, sans mercy and sans grace, to keep the prideful and the great from ever losing faith. How it all started. First there was this big love-in, see? And everybody got high. The city council were uptight about it, and you can imagine why. Carpenters left their workbenches, fishermen left their nets, and they all converged on Jerusalem, regardless of warnings or threats. Some of them claimed they saw tongues of fire dancing about on each other's heads. All that hallucinating and no available hospital beds. These cats didn't have any LSD for expanding the mind, but they had what they called the Holy Spirit, which the cops couldn't certainly find. It was invisible, man, and no one could taste it or smell it. But when anybody was under the influence, everybody could smell it. Jews mingled with Goyim, Roman mingled with Greek. It was, join in, brother, we dig you, no matter what language you speak. That was the start of the famous slogan, make love, not war. Syrian, Ethiopian, Persian, who cared to say what you are? Psychedelic, man, it was apostolic. And I mean, it was for real, not just symbolic. Love flowed like a river of peace, pure and unbounded. The soldiers and the police were confused and confounded. They couldn't get that Holy Spirit enclosed or surrounded. The rich shared with the poor, and the poor shared with the rich. And what made it disturbing was you couldn't distinguish which was which. And on every side the sick were healed without the aid of qualified physicians. In short, the things that were going on disrupted normal social conditions. The authorities realized that here was a threat to law and order. If it wasn't revolutionary, at least it was on the border. So they did their best to break it up, as officials must do in such a case. They ordered the crowds to disperse, but alas, no one had yet invented me. They said, move on, and I'm telling you now, as man to man, that was exactly how the early Christian movement began. At the Franz, we stood before the chasm, my trembling hand in his, and saw the awesome gap between what should be and what is. And there was neither bridge to cross, nor detour signs to guide, but just that gap in front of us, unutterably wide. Mankind, the engineer, we thought, must somehow bridge this deep, or what's to stop humanity from one last lover's leap? A pebble against Goliath. My pebble caught him squarely between the eyes, but he doesn't fall. He stands there, dreadful as ever, sung with surprise and 10 feet tall. According to the script, he should crash to earth like a falling tree. And the multitude, for all their worth, said, hurrah for me. Where is my victory and my ovation? I know he's hit. Look close. Maybe just imagination, but doesn't he seem to sway a bit? And finally, all that I seem to be saying, over and over and over is, let life go on. From the timid young fawn to the bee and the blossoming clover. Let life go on. Do not stunt it or starve it, exploit it, deform it, or thwart it, or twist it. And if I belated a point, it's because somebody somewhere appears to have missed it.
When the world is on fire, don't you want God's bosom to be your pillow? Rock me over in the rock of ages, rock of ages. the world's on fire. Don't you want God's bosom to be your pillow? Rock me over in the rock of ages, rock of ages, cleft for me. Oh, my dear mother, when the world's on fire, don't you want God's bosom to be your pillow? Rock me over in the rock of ages, rock of ages, cleft for me. Oh, my dear children, when the world's on fire, don't you want God's bosom to be your pillow? Rock me over in the rock of ages, rock of ages, left for me. Okay, this song is taken from We Shall Overcome. We just put different verses with it. Ideally, we should be holding hands for this. What I would really like to do is form a great big circle of everybody holding hands. Why not? Why not? Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's try and form a big circle and hold hands.
Come this way. Come this way. Try and step forward in so you can see the music.
Sure. How about putting these down?